We have a question from Phil. I just wanted to ask about your relationship with Mark Twight. How did you guys first meet? And maybe what's one or two things you've learned from him and one or two things you've helped pass along to inform his training programs? You both are very interesting guys, and I would just love to learn a little bit more about that backstory. Yeah, it's a very simple story. I was here in Salt Lake City in beautiful Murray, and Mark was just to the north of us, about 10 miles, in a place called Jim Jones. G-Y-M Jones. It's a play off of the terrible tragedy that I grew up with when my Congressman Leo J. Ryan was murdered by a cult. Times change. We were introduced by someone online. It was got one of those Mark, Dan, Mark things, because I'd heard of him and he'd heard of me. We just didn't know we were this close. And Mark first came over a few times to train with me in the backyard. Many of the photos that you see of me that are kind of the most famous, like the cover of Never Let Go, that's Mark Twight who took the picture. I was developing, and by the time I met Mark, I was fairly deep into my understanding of loaded carries. So with Mark, we were doing things like rock runs. It's when you pick up a heavy rock and run with it. We've softened up a little bit and now use sandbags. We were doing combination movements at the time, like bear hug and sled pull, which is at the cover of Never Let Go. I was working on and developed pretty fully by the time I met Mark the whole lift and run series. That's where you do like a squat followed immediately by a sprint. Immediately. And that can be an overhead squat, that works well. Front squat works well. Any kettlebell variation works well. I like short, hard sprints the best. But you can also do the lift and sleds, which is a squat or a hinge again. I should have said squat or hinge in the beginning. Followed by a sled pull. And the only thing on that, you have to be careful of, just make sure the weight isn't in the way of the sled as it comes. We've gone so far since then. Mark would come over, and while we were training certain special forces guys in my backyard, we would have people on my deck cooking all kinds of different meats and stuff. And so basically we would work out hard for a couple hours and then drink beer and eat meat on my deck. Mark and I later worked with a group of American military who sadly all died in a terrible incident about a decade ago. And it was sad because several of them I had become very close with. I don't see Mark as much as I used to. Once, well, you might know this, is that he did the training for the guys in 300. And I got to tell you, as much as I love Mark, that 300 movie, maybe the way it was sold, did a lot of damage for the way we coach people, because everyone wanted to have those. They wanted to look like one of the guys in the movies. And that's great, and Mark did a great job setting them up. The problem was the damage control downstream, because you'd want to train, get ready for American football or discus throwing, and the guys wanted to have 8-pack abs and go ooh a lot, and that just doesn't always help. The interesting thing, my favorite thing about Mark, is that Mark's first strength coach was Steve Illg, and I do have I have a review of some of Steve Illg's book here on the YouTube channel, and I'm a big fan of Steve Illg and his holistic fitness approach. Mark one time told me he wished he would have appreciated some of the things that Steve had been coaching in, things like meditation and stuff. This isn't a knock on anybody. This is certainly not a knock on Mark, but what happens when you're first coming up is the tools of recovery, including meditation and sleep and nap, you ignore it. And then all of a sudden you overdo all that stuff. And then when you get to the ripe old age of 63, you kind of figure out, you finally figure out the role of each. I would say, of course, the best on that was always Charlie Francis, the great Canadian sprint coach. One or two things I learned from Mark. Mark was the first person to really expound on something that I had read as a child. In fact, I read it clearly when I was in the 9th grade, because some of my first workouts were based on Pat O'Shea, the great Oregon State, not only was a weightlifter, but he was a great scientist, and it was interval weight training. So that's the thing I got from Mark the best. Now, you can raise your hand and say, well, isn't that Isn't that circuit training? I'll go, okay, yeah, it's circuit training. Isn't that this or that? Yes, it's this or that. But the clarity was something I never fully grasped. So yeah, so clarifying the work of Pat O'Shea would be big. Interval weight training was very big because I can use that with the people I work with. Boy, I hope Mark learned some things from me. One of the best things I think Mark and his groups back then learned is what strong is, and that was an issue. Whenever you have a group training, you get an isolated group training. Certain things become the norm. Very often, like for men, it might be a 300-pound deadlift. Well, I doubled that and change more, and so many more articles you'll find. I had a great conversation with Mark about there's max, 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 and max, max, max. And my best lifts and best throws. These aren't, none of those are done in the happy confines of the gym. They're all on the platform, make or die lifts, and so that's going to be a totally different experience for somebody who's come in from another sport like cycling or something like that, who begins to lift weights. They might think that a 300 or even a 400-pound deadlift is a lot, whereas, once you've seen literally hundreds of high school 15, 16, 17-year-old boys deadlift 400, you can't really go, oh my God, it's the biggest lift of all time. I hope none of what I said was negative at all, because I have great respect for Mark. I'd love for you to ask him the same question. It'd be fun to hear. So yeah, so one of the things I think I taught him was the difference between max and max and max, max, max and all that. And I'd also think I might have been able to teach him how many more things you can get out of strength training than just strength. So, Philip, this was a good question. It got me thinking a little bit, and as I always joke, I think thinking is a good thing. So, thank you very much.